What's up, you filthy casuals? Welcome to Casual Shenanigans Tech, a podcast where myself, Jeremiah, and Dave, hey Dave.
What's up, guys?
We answer your tech questions mostly related to your computer builds. We are, of course, the partner podcast to Casual Shenanigans Gaming, which is a podcast all about the irreverent love of gaming. We record this podcast between 1 and 2 times a month, depending on how many questions we get from you guys. And you can go to our website, casualshenanigans.com, to submit questions, or you can write in to casualshenanigans@gmail.com. As always, the more detail you can give us in your emails, the better we can help you, and we may send you back a follow-up email if we have more questions. And anytime we send you guys an answer, you are more than welcome to write back if you want clarification on anything, or if you want to give us an update on a changed budget or a changed requirement, because that does happen from time to time. But now we're going to start the podcast like we always do with the Rig Report.
The Rig Report. Dun, 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 dun.
I feel like there's a little more pop and circumstance that time than normal.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big month, right? It's the end of the Windows 10 upgrade period. That's exciting.
Exciting for me. I upgraded with 6 days to go, I think. Oh yeah. So more significant than the Windows 10 upgrade is I am on a terabyte SSD for my boot drive now.
Oh, finally, you peasant.
Well, because of so there's the laptop that I sold. So I pulled the 240 gig SSD out that I'd put in there. And then I pulled the identical 240 gig SSD out of my computer. So now I've got two 240s sitting on my desk. So I think one of them is going to go back in as my photo editing scratch drive. Right now, that's my first SSD, which is 5 years old and still kicking. That's a OCZ 120 gig. So I'm going to drop one of these Samsung 840 EVO 240 gigs in there as a replacement. Then the other one, I think I'm just turning into an external hard drive.
Nice.
And I might turn the 120 into an external hard drive as well. I don't know why I would need 2 SSD external hard drives that aren't very big, but I might do that. So I'm running a SanDisk Ultra 2 SSD. It's not the fastest SSD out there. I think it sustains in the 350 to 400 range. And its seek times and everything aren't incredible, but they're so much faster than a hard drive. And it's really, really big and economical as far as drives go. So I believe I got it for, what was it, $175 shipped?
Nice.
On Amazon Prime Day. So that was kind of one of their big premier deals. It was definitely a good deal. I went for it. I upgraded Windows 10 or to Windows 10, and actually that process was about as easy as you could expect. All I had to do was make a Windows 10 boot thumb drive, which they've made incredibly easy. You download the tool off their website. You don't have to download an ISO or anything else. You start this little program. It says, what are you making? You're making boot media? Okay. Which version of the operating system? Okay. You're making an ISO, a disk, or a thumb drive? Say thumb drive. It picks the thumb drive that you want, like off the list, and then it erases it. It downloads the files. It builds it. It lets you know when it's ready. Boom. That's it. Super easy. Could not be easier.
Oh, yeah.
I have not used the disk drive in my computer in probably a year and a half because the plastic tub lid that I sit my computer on to keep it off the carpet blocks the door from opening, if I'm being 100% honest. So I don't use that drive anymore, but I don't need to. Installation process could not be easier. Extremely simple. Very, very smooth. I don't like the fact that I kind of needed to upgrade to Windows 10 to play new Universal Windows Platform games, get DirectX 12 support, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But so far, everything's been great. 0 compatibility issues. Every program has worked 100% first time, just like it did on 8.1. The only things I'm not really liking are it forgets my Windows scaling options for different monitors from time to time, and I'm running a unique situation. I'm running a 1680 by 1050 vertical monitor, a 4K horizontal monitor, and a 1080p horizontal monitor all in one line. So it's a lot of weird real estate that Windows has to scale stuff to. But Windows 8.1 was remembering it pretty well after a while, so maybe Windows 10 learns. I mean, it seemed like 8.1 got better as time went on. So who knows? But yeah, so I don't really like all the convenient features they're trying to push my way. Like, I feel like stuff like Cortana should be things you opt into, not stuff that I have to opt out of. And there have definitely been a few times where they've tried to give me these extra features that I don't want, and I have to kind of navigate around them. Just like this thing I've talked to you about before that I don't like about Windows 10 is they've got the super pretty, fancy options menu. And then if you want to do any real adjustments, you have to go to the typical old regular Windows option menu you're used to. And I don't like that they have two competing design philosophies
Yep.
and two competing places to change stuff. It's not just that. There's Windows Media Player, and then there's like their version, their Windows App Store version, which is way prettier. Why not just reskin Windows Media Player to be that? Like, why does that need to be two apps? And then same thing for Photo Viewer. There's 3 different things that come with this computer or this operating system. They can all view photos that are built in. Why is that necessary? Like, why can't one of them just do all of it, you know? So
I think
trying
it'll
to
come
hold on
with
to the
time.
past.
I feel like someone like held the line, is like, no, we can't get rid of XYZ yet. You know,
Yeah, legacy support,
Yeah,
which I appreciate. but,
somebody
like,
should have drawn the line a little bit further back.
yeah, this is like, if you're going to do it, do it. If you're going to inconvenience people, I mean, you've already inconvenienced people by like threatening their families if they don't upgrade. Like, you know, they've been trying to get you to upgrade for a year. It just feels like they should have stuck to their guns a little bit more. If these new apps, I don't have issues with any of them. They seem to work fine. I haven't used the mail app or anything, but mostly like the picture and video apps. Just stick with those. Like, why do we need Windows Media Player anymore? It doesn't do anything that these don't, as far as I know. Maybe somebody's still using it to rip their CDs into their
It's me.
Wave
I'm that
music
guy.
collection.
It's me.
You know, I mean, like, maybe there's somebody who's like, no, I need Windows Media Player. Then maybe they can just have a download on their website. I don't know. I just don't feel like the operating system should come with competing programs that look totally different and do the same thing. So I'm still fighting through some of that clunkiness, but things I do like, because I don't want to just sound negative, I have my taskbar on every monitor now, and I have the open programs that are on that monitor show up on that taskbar, which is very useful for finding programs.
Number one favorite feature, because I had a plugin that I used for that, which, I mean, it worked, but this works better. So
I like the snapping. Snapping works in quarters now, where you can snap something to the bottom left, bottom right, upper right. And when you snap something to the side, it brings up kind of that mosaic of all your other windows. So you can choose one that'll automatically snap to the window next to it. I think that's a really cool feature. I actually thoroughly enjoy that.
I don't use snapping at all. I feel like I probably should.
Oh, I snap all the time because I've got so many things I'm doing on different monitors. Part of it is when you're running 4K.
Here we go.
Well, no, actually, it probably wouldn't really be any different with 1440p. On 1080p, it's a little hard. Running 2 browsers side by side, you know, on 1080p, you're going to lose a little horizontal real estate. But on 4K or 1440p, you can easily fit 2 full browser windows side by side because most browsers are set for, 1,000 pixels wide, something like that. So, you know, it's very easy to fit a lot of information in there. So I use snapping all the time. But, yeah, overall, not an overwhelmingly positive experience, but Windows upgrades have been way, way worse in the past, and I was going to do it eventually, so it's gone okay. I would have preferred not to have had to, but by that logic, I'd still be on Windows 7, which I still maintain is the best operating system they've made in like 20 years, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I actually disagree there. I used 7 somewhat recently, and I really did not enjoy it whatsoever.
Really, what did you not enjoy about it? Because the things I enjoy about it might be very, like, I enjoy it for very particular reasons.
Some of it is, you know, superficial. I prefer the flat design. When I'm actually using a computer for productivity, I really depend on Explorer a lot. I have tons of Explorer windows open. And so the updated Explorer and Task Manager are like...
I'm not wild about the updated Explorer.
Really?
The quick access and stuff, it's too cluttered. There's too much. Part of it's my fault. I've got like 7 hard drives and like 8 mapped network drives.
Oh,
again, I'm power
me too.
user.
I have 10 disks plugged in right now, but still, it works great for me. It's not always accurate, but overall, it's a huge improvement over 7. And of course, you know, better SSD support and stuff like that with the modern OSs. As a power user, I would be pulling my hair out if I was still on 7 in 2016.
The thing I like about 7 is because I manage a lot of computers for clients remotely most of the time. Any of the ones that run 7, I'm never worried that it's going to try to screw me. Like with Windows 10, on any computer, there's always a chance like it's going to, oh, you needed this update. I'm just going to go ahead and shut you down.
Oh, yeah.
Or there's this Cortana decided to take over your desktop and start deleting things she thinks are ugly. She's just trying to help. It feels like every couple days with any Windows 10 computer, and even some Windows 8 stuff, I find some new feature or I'm like, no, not right now. Please, Windows, can you just chill? Windows, stop Windows. No, come on. Do I have to deal with this right now? And with Windows 7, for better or for worse, it's like, oh, here you go. That's it.
Yeah.
This is all you get.
If I could have the modernness of Windows 10 with the freedom and hands-offness of 7, that would be my perfect OS.
I think everybody probably would.
Yeah.
But have you changed anything on your computer?
The only thing of note for me was I went camping this weekend, and on Friday night, I had shut my computer down while I was packing stuff up, and I was like, oh man, I want to see if my latest ebook is on my phone. So I went to boot the computer to check my ebooks and see if I actually transferred them all over, and it wouldn't boot. I got a black screen with a blinking cursor. And I rebooted a couple times, and I was like, all right, it's probably on my phone. Like, I'm going to bed. I'm going camping. Got back on Sunday, sat at my desk, looked at my computer, and then pulled the SD card out of the $5 reader in my computer, and then booted my computer. It's just one of those things, like, I was just like, I'm not going to mess with this. And then I thought about it. I'm like, oh, I bet you when I was clearing off SD cards, I left one plugged in, and it was trying to boot off of it. Sure enough.
It's always good when it's something easy.
Yeah.
It's always bad when it's something like some weird, obscure issue, like it can't boot with just that thumb drive plugged in, not because it's booting off of it, but just because it hates it. You know, like,
oh, yeah.
I had that actually when I built my first gaming PC. I had it for about a month, went back to college to start the fall semester. My roommate had a printer, plugged the printer in, my computer wouldn't post. That wouldn't boot up, wouldn't post. Mm-hmm. After trying every combination of things we could, we determined it is just that printer. Swapped the cable, swapped the power cable, all that stuff. Something about that printer prevented the computer from even posting. No idea. We took it out, and I think we just chucked it into the dumpster. Like, well, this isn't going anywhere.
It's one of those things, as far as the booting goes, that, like, I told you, I think about a week ago, that I had installed Windows 10 on my grandma's laptop, and I made the mistake of using the line, it's all good to go. You don't have to do anything, meaning, like, all your files are there, you're good to go, right? Mm-hmm. And, after a few weeks, or I guess a month now of using it, she got your usual Windows 10, like, hey, updates are ready. Go ahead and just hit this, install your updates. And to her, when I said, it's good to go, you don't have to do anything, what she heard was, my computer is good to go for the rest of eternity. And so when updates were ready, I actually got a voicemail where she said, hey, Dave, it's Grandma. Was working on the computer today, and it popped up, and it's just gone now. The computer's gone. It's not working anymore. Give me a call back when you can. I was like, what could have possibly gone wrong in a month? And it was Windows updates. I was like, imagine if she had seen the blinking cursor and literally nothing else on the screen that I was getting. Like, it's one of those things where just with experience, like, almost nothing is ever like an actual end of day scenario for your computer. You just have to know where to look.
Almost nothing. Of course, then when you're overclocking, any like 1 second pause in when it's booting up, you're like, uh-oh. Oopsie. Did I make a mistake?
Do I reset the CMOS battery now or when the capacitors explode?
Although they've gotten way better at that too. Man, when I got my Q6600 up to 3 gigahertz, because, all right, it was stock, it was at what, 2.4?
Yeah.
And I had a 9600 GT. And then I was like, the first time I made the mistake of going SLI, I got a second 9600 GT and nothing changed. Literally nothing changed. And that was the day I learned about CPU bottlenecks. And I decided I needed to overclock. And it took me a month to get it up to 3 gigahertz because I had to learn how to do it, learn about temperatures, all that stuff. It was like right at a knife edge the whole way up. Like my particular combination of stuff was not bought with overclocking in mind. So I was kind of learning it as I went, and it wasn't all the ideal stuff. And I mean, it was running like, low 70s, which for those chips was pretty near the top, but it was running low 70s and, got much better performance. But that was a whole lot of like reboot, crash, reboot, crash, reboot, crash. So anyway, let's answer some questions, Dave.
Let's do it.
So Chris wrote into casualshenanigans@gmail.com. He says, "What's up, guys? I'm about to move my rig into a new case. I figured while everything was out, I would install an M2 drive onto my motherboard. While researching the drives, I found they come with two different interfaces, PCIe and SATA." I'm going to cut in right here, Chris. That's not correct. I'm going to read the rest of your email, but for anybody listening, I just want to cut in. I'll explain in a minute. Is there a difference between them? I have an ASRock Z97 Extreme 4 motherboard. In the manual, it says the M2 socket 3 is shared with the SATA Express connector. Does this mean I will lose the use of some of my SATA ports, and does this mean I have to buy a SATA type M2 drive? Really, the only reason I'm looking to add the drive is because I have the port and figured, why not? Okay, so Dave, are you familiar with the difference between M2, PCI Express, and SATA?
Not super familiar, actually. Why don't you educate us, Jeremiah?
Well, so SATA is a interface. It's kind of like internal USB. Think of it that way. And like most of our descriptions, this is the layman's description. So for anybody who really understands the stuff, just roll with us here. So it's a little bit like your internal USB. You can plug your DVD drive into it. You plug your hard drives into it. You plug your SSD into it. Most of the stuff you're going to be plugging in with cables onto the motherboard that's not power related is going to be plugging into your SATA ports. PCI Express are the slots that your graphics card goes into, maybe your Wi-Fi card goes into. In the old days, maybe like a RAID card. I don't feel like most people are doing stuff like that now. Used to be sound cards. All these expansion cards that add new features. Maybe they add more USB ports, more SATA ports, something like that. And then there's M2, which looks like a funny stick of memory almost. And a lot of M2 slots are getting added onto motherboards now. M2 SSD is basically an SSD if you just took it out of its case and put a different interface on the end of it and plugged it right into the board. And that M2 connection is faster than a SATA connection. So we have SATA 3 and then we have SATA 3.2, I think. SATA Express is kind of like USB 3 Type C or 3.1. It's USB 3, but it's modified and runs faster and is like a higher performing version of it. So PCI Express, SATA, and M2 are all different connections. So you can have a PCI Express SSD, that is the fastest connection. You can have a SATA, which is the slowest but cheapest, or you can have an M2, which is nice and in the middle. And the nice thing about M2, it's a little drive. You just click into your motherboard and it doesn't take up one of your SATA ports and there's no big cable. It gets power and signal through the motherboard.
Nice
Pretty
and simple,
sweet.
yeah.
It is. So where in your motherboard it says the M2 socket 3 is shared with the SATA Express connector. What that means, Chris, is that your motherboard does not have a dedicated M2 controller. We talked about this when we talked about motherboards in a previous episode. It does not have a dedicated little chip on the motherboard that controls your M2 slot. So it's shared with the SATA Express connector. So your SATA controller can split one of its, think of it as lanes on a highway. One of the lanes can either be a M2 lane or it can be a SATA Express lane, but it can't be both. So if you use the M2 socket, you are going to lose one of your SATA Express connectors. But SATA Express looks different than SATA. I believe they're backwards compatible, but they look different. So if you're using all your regular SATA ports, you should not lose one of those. You would just be losing access to one of your SATA Express ports. You can still plug stuff into it. It won't do anything. And your motherboard should tell you which one. So yeah, I'd say go for it. I mean, there's no reason that you need to. If you have enough SATA ports, it's cheaper just to get an SSD and plug it into there. But if you want to try something new, yeah, sure, go for it. I'd only get a PCI Express SSD if you really need throughput. Like if you need above a gigabyte per second read or writes or something like that. Actually, are they? Yeah, they're above a gigabyte a second. PCI Express is all about speed. SATA is all about cheap and easy. And M2 kind of splits the difference between them.
Makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. And then Callum writes in and says, "Hey guys, I wrote in a while back for some budget advice. He is now running an AMD A6 6400K APU, an MSI GTX 950, 8 gigs of DDR3, a 1TB Western Digital Blue, and a Corsair 200R case. He says, where next? I've decided my CPU is holding me back massively. It's on the FM2 Plus socket. So I could grab an X4 860K or similar, or is that no longer good enough for 1080p gaming? GPU choice is also a question on my mind. Is the 950 enough for AAA titles, or should I upgrade? Is the RX 480 the way to go? Is there a cheaper option for me? I'm in the UK. 1080p is what I will stick with for now. The 950 and my CPU run all the Blizzard games, Elder Scrolls Online, Team Fortress 2, and other games I play, but I'm put off from buying AAA titles because I'm worried they won't run. So what would you suggest? There's no fixed budget, but bear in mind 1080p is all that's required here. P.S. My power supply needs replacing with something better, but I'm already dealing with that.
Good.
So, Dave, to give you some context on you're familiar with the GTX 950, but to give you context on the X4 860K, that's pretty similar to the not the 860K, the A6 6400K, which is an APU. In performance with just the CPU, that's a little bit similar to the X4 860K or the new X4 845, which is an excellent budget processor. It's actually pretty similar to the i5 750 and the Potato Masher for gaming stuff. And then the GTX 950 is pretty similar to the GTX 760 and the Potato Masher. So his build is probably a little bit slower. And he would be limited in some Intel preferred titles. But actually, I think, Callum, you could be playing 1080p AAA games right now. Maybe on lower settings. But Dave, if you had his build, what would you upgrade first? No fixed budget in mind.
No fixed budget. GPU is the easiest upgrade first. I think you see a definite performance upgrade just right there.
With a what?
A graphics card upgrade.
Okay. And what would you think you would go to from a 950?
For 950, he's asking about value for the RX 480, and that's neck and neck with the 980 still, right?
It's between a 970 and a 980 in most games, according to most reviews.
Yeah,
and it's $200 MSRP for the 4 gig, $240 for the 8 gig.
Especially with how expensive and difficult to find the current NVIDIA generation is. If you're worried about value, 480, yeah.
And if you really wanted just value, you could get like an old R9 290 or something. But if you have a crappy power supply, you do not want to do that.
Yeah.
You don't want an old AMD card. You don't want an old NVIDIA card for that matter either. They've all gotten so much more power efficient. Yeah, I think I would definitely do the GPU first because you can take that with you into pretty much any build. Whereas if you upgrade your processor, to do it right, you're going to need a new processor and a new motherboard. And to get a significant upgrade for gaming, you're looking at least $200. So you can do $200 for your CPU and you probably won't see a big improvement in gaming, or you can do $200 for a GPU and pretty definitely see a big improvement even if you're a little bit bottlenecked. But if you want to be sure, use MSI Afterburner, use the performance overlay, and see if your GPU is maxing out or if it's got a lot left in it. If it's maxing out in some of your most complicated games that you have, then your processor is still doing okay for you. If your processor is sitting at like 80 to 90% or higher all the time, and your GPU is maybe like in the 60s or 70s, then you've got, another 20, 30% performance left in the GPU, and you should get a better CPU. But I think you're probably okay to stretch that CPU a bit longer. But you should definitely check MSI Afterburner. See for yourself. Jarrod wrote in and says, "Hello, podcasters and podcastees. I come to you from a land of darkness and obsolete hardware, some would call my bedroom. I have an old family PC that was a lower-end pre-built from 2007, which we upgraded with a GeForce 210 1GB video card so we could play Lego Star Wars. I want to build a PC. I want to build a PC in a small form factor, like LAN party ready, with either onboard Wi-Fi or a Wi-Fi expansion card that's able to play modern games at Potato Masher level graphics or better with a somewhat flexible budget of $500 to $700. I would like to use the recently introduced R9 480 card. It's the RX 480. But beyond that, I don't have any good ideas." So, 1 second. Let me check his email so I can see the saved parts list I have for him here. Okay. You ready for a link, Dave?
Hit me.
So the list I've thrown together, and you said Potato Masher or better, and you want to use the RX 480. So the first thing is, this list we're going to send you, the RX 480 is most likely out of stock, just because they go in and out of stock. If you want one, you're going to have to modify this list yourself and add one back in that's in stock. Same thing for the memory. DDR4 memory goes in and out of stock a lot faster than DDR3. There's a lot more sales and whatever else. All you need to do, if either of those two aren't in stock, is just edit the parts list, remove them, go to add more memory. It'll show you compatible stuff, pick whatever's in your budget. But the core of this system is the Thermaltake Core V21 Micro ATX mid-tower case, a very popular LAN party case. It's small, it has a cool window, it's shaped like a little box, it's kind of easy to carry. It's not terrible.
Where's the carry handles?
This one does not have carry handles. If you want carry handles, there are some that have carry handles. I think they're a little bit gaudy and they cost more. That's up to you. But it has a Skylake i3-6100 dual-core i3 processor. That's a hyper-threaded dual-core. Gigabyte B150 motherboard, crucial 8 gigs of RAM, a Western Digital Caviar Blue 500 gig hard drive. For $8 more, you can bump it up to a terabyte. That's up to you. Do whatever you want. A Thermaltake 600 watt 80 plus gold power supply, and a gigabyte wireless AC Wi-Fi adapter. It sounds like you already have a Windows key, so I didn't include that. But if you need one, you can of course add that onto there. But the RX 480 is out of stock, so I can't remember what the budget of this was, but I think it was around the $680 bracket. So hopefully that works okay over in England. If the prices, I mean, I don't know what the pound is doing over there for you guys right now.
Crazy
if the
things,
prices are way off, get back to me and we can try to revise the list. But that should be pretty good. Hopefully he didn't mean 500 to 700 pounds. Hopefully he meant dollars. Yeah, if you have any questions, write into us. Dave, do you have any thoughts about the build?
If the budget ends up being a little bit off, he's got some flex room, what do you think you should look at first?
Video card. So he said potato masher or better. RX 480 is significantly better. So if I was going to try to save some money, that's either $200 or $240, depending on which model you get. I would see what you can get a GTX 960 for. You could look at an R9. Actually, nah. To get better than the GTX 760 and the Potato Masher, a 380 wouldn't work. You need like an R9 380X, which is probably going to be around $200 anyway.
Yeah,
so
I think
within a week, the RX 470 is going to be out for about 160 to 170.
Exactly. There you go, right there. Yeah,
and that would be a very sweet spot if you want to save a little money. You can also get a crappier case. There are ATX mini tower cases that are like $30. But that's just a much cooler case I gave you. So you could save $30 in your power supply, $30 in your case, and probably $30 or $40 in your video card if you want to, very easily.
And final question, if he ends up with room to move the budget up some, what's the first thing you should jump on?
I would go to a Skylake quad core.
Boom, me too.
Yeah, it depends on how much extra you want to spend, because some of the cheaper quad cores are going to be slower speed-wise. Like their actual clock speed's going to be slower than this i3-6100. And they aren't overclockable either, but they are quad cores, which is nice. But as long as you can get one that's like a 3.4 gigahertz or higher, somewhere in that range, you're probably going to spend close to $200. So you're adding like $75 onto the budget. But yeah, that'll be great for gaming long term. That'll help you
everything, really. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Mike wrote in next. Mike says, I don't know hardware really well. I was hoping to get help with a parts list. Amazon can be daunting, and I've not found anybody else that has an opinion worth my trust. So I was hoping you could help. I'm going for something nice, as I am picky, and as such, I'm prone to trust price over specs because more expensive things are supposed to be better, but that's not true, and that's dangerous. So I'm thinking an i7 with a GTX 1080 is the best way to help you understand what I'm going for. Like Dave, I would like the best experience possible while gaming. I also plan on playing some games in 3D. Thank you for your time and your counsel. You guys are great. And then he added on later, he wants to spend up to about $2,000. He wants 4K, and he's in the US.
Okay.
So are you ready for a parts list?
Yeah, this is it's a bit of an intense one.
It is. Now, all right, so here's the thing, Mike. If you are planning on 4K, but you didn't want the monitor added into the budget, this all changes. So you'll need to write back, and I'll help you out. Because actually, we can't do this in your budget while keeping everything nice. and I'll explain why. So actually, Dave, I'm going to get a drink of water. Would you mind running down the parts list?
Sure.
Real quick?
What we got? We got an Intel Core i7 6700K, which has a stock clock of 4 gigahertz. Look at that. Our old friend, the Hyper 212, has our cooler. Gigabyte Z170 motherboard, which is, of course, LGA 1151. 16 gigs of DDR4 3000. That's 4 gig sticks. That's interesting. For your boot drive, you've got a Crucial 240 gig solid state drive. You've got a delicious EVGA GTX 1080. Comes with 8 gigs of VRAM. A Fractal Design Define R5 black ATX mid-tower case. I know Jeremiah's a big fan. It's hard to argue with the simple look. It does look clean and good. Got an EVGA Supernova power supply, 80 plus gold certified at 650 watts. Also got a DVD burner, 16 bucks, nothing exciting there. A full OEM copy of Windows 10 and a Dell P2715Q 27-inch 60 hertz monitor. And I believe that one should be 4K given the price. Let me check.
That's my monitor.
So that's a 4K monitor.
Yeah. So here's the problem. If you want to have an awesome gaming experience and you want to spend $2,000, I do not recommend going 4K. Not because you can't have an awesome experience, but if you want to just be blown away, go 1440p. Because even with a 1080, you're not going to be cranking every single game at 4K. Mm-hmm. There are going to be limits, and there aren't many awesome 4K gaming monitors. So I have to deal with, not horrible, but I've got like a 10 millisecond lag on my monitor. But I mean, it's still good. That's not a big deal unless you know what you're looking for. But yeah, you're still gonna have to turn some stuff down. If you're fine doing that, I think 4K is awesome. I love 4K, but I also would be totally fine at 1440p. And Dave, you have a 1080 and 1440p, and I'm guessing you're cranking pretty much everything, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in the range now with my 1080 that having like 2 sliders on high instead of ultra, like I'm totally happy. It's fantastic.
And I did modify that list to drop to 2 8 gig sticks of memory. Now the memory's a little bit more expensive than it could be. It's DDR4 3000. I want to throw out a quick note for anybody buying a Skylake processor. With DDR4 memory, RAM speed now does make a significant difference for how fast things run for games and for some programs. So before, RAM mattered a little bit, but not much of the time, like how fast it was. Mm-hmm. But with DDR4, it makes a significant difference at times. So highly recommend ponying up for faster than like 2133 RAM. Other notes. You said you wanted something nice. The nice thing about the R5 case, it is quiet. It is amazing to build in. It's all about the user experience. It is also very boring looking. It's a black box. It just sits there. Very sleek, but if you want a little more style, there's 1,000 other cases in that price range. We can get you a little more style. If you want some more style, let us know. So right now, this budget is sitting at about $2,100. So if $2,000 is your hard cap and you need the monitor included, I'm going to push back a little bit on the 60 hertz thing. It's $540. So you can't get like an amazing G-Sync IPS monitor for that price. Those are actually more unless you get one refurbished. But you can get a 144 hertz IPS panel for that price. You can get a really awesome 60 hertz IPS panel for less money than that. So if you were looking at doing 4K, you're going to be stuck at 60 hertz anyway. So if you're okay going 1440p, there's some really awesome monitors you could use. Some gaming, some not, and you'll be able to pretty much crank them. But, just let us know and we can help you refine this list a little bit more. But I do love 4K. I mean, I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. Last note with the processor, you don't need an i7. I mean, you'd be totally fine with an i5.
Oh, yeah.
If you're okay spending the money, though, it is going to be a little more future-proof. And when your GPU is running hard, i7s do make a slight difference. Having the extra 4 virtual cores makes a slight difference in your frame timing and stuff. I mean, honestly, if you're just getting into this, you're not going to notice the difference. But long-term, yeah, it's going to be a little bit better. So, and it'll also help you with 3D. Or no, you want to play games in 3D. Okay, that's actually... I'm sorry, I misread that part of your email. I thought you meant you did some 3D work. If you're going to play some games in 3D, does that mean you want a 3D monitor?
Ooh, that does change things.
Yeah, you need to write back to us. We will help you out. We're going to get you a good build here. But if you want a 3D monitor, things change drastically because there aren't that many of them.
It would just be a couple tweaks, so we could just chime in with what we sent back to him for next time.
Yeah, we might do that. So get back to us with any of these expensive builds. There's typically like a little bit of a back and forth process while we get down exactly what you want. You don't want to spend this money at the drop of a hat. So we expect you to write back to us, and we'll go back and forth once or twice before we get you, lined up with the exact right build for you. But that's kind of where we'd start. That's kind of the basic.
Oh yeah.
4K starter pack, a GTX 1080 and a 6700K. All right, so Tyler wrote in and he said, what AMD card released or expected in the future would be able to get 100 FPS at 1440p at high or ultra in the majority of cases to take advantage of a FreeSync monitor, which he's considering? Or is FreeSync not much of a game changer to really merit choosing AMD over NVIDIA? He also says, I just downloaded the CSG game, that is The Magic Castle of the Lost Knight, which you can find at casualshenanigans.com. He's renamed it to Joel's Masterpiece, and he says he's waiting for a new hard drive to record to, and he might do a short series from it.
Oh my.
Dave, so you know the big difference between FreeSync and G-Sync?
G-Sync is proprietary, and FreeSync is open standard.
Which means there's about a $200 difference in the monitors.
Yep.
But as far as how well they work, I think G-Sync is a little more flexible, if I understand correctly. I know FreeSync monitors have a range at which they FreeSync. Like, it's not FreeSync from 1 hertz all the way to 144 hertz.
Right.
Usually there's a range in the middle there. As far as whether or not it's a game changer, everybody I know or I've read who's used a variable refresh rate monitor says that it's life-changing. So take their word over mine. But what AMD card would be able to get 100 FPS at 1440p on high or ultra? The Fury X is the closest thing. AMD's not really going to do high-end anymore. So that's what they've said, at least. They might release a higher end, like an RX 490 or something. Who knows? Or Fury X2, something like that.
That'd be nice.
But they say they're not going to play in the high end of the market anymore because they sell way more in the low end of the market. They can be more profitable there. They can be more competitive there. And that's always been the case with them. So, I don't know if I'd be betting long-term on FreeSync just because you don't know what AMD is going to do in the high end of the market. And they said they have no plans to do a lot in the high end of the market. So, yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Dave? Would you, knowing that, would you go with FreeSync or would you just stick with NVIDIA?
Yeah, that is a tough one. Like, I really hope AMD comes out swinging sometime soon. G-Sync's probably the safer bet for now, but you're going to pay for it. And if you know that up front and you're okay with it, dive in, but...
Yeah. I mean, like, if you know what you're getting into, go for it. It's kind of hard to necessarily recommend G-Sync just because we know it's going to be more money. Mm-hmm. But it's good. I mean, it's a good technology if you're okay with it. But anyway, next is Henrik. Henrik? I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name wrong. But he wrote in and he said, I'm looking for a decent monitor for school, PS4, laptop gaming, all that stuff. I could use some advice. I've always been playing on a TV, but because I'm moving into a smaller apartment, I'm looking for a desk monitor. I do have some requirements, but they're not set in stone. I'd like it to have HDMI, DisplayPort, mini DisplayPort for docking, and some USB hubs. Resolution is not the most important thing for me, and the PS4, of course, doesn't do more than 1080p, but 1440p would be great for editing. I've been looking at the Dell UltraSharp U2414H, but I know much to little about refresh rates and that kind of stuff to be making my own decisions. I'm a student. My budget's $300 to $350. As always, all your podcasts rock. Keep up the good work, Henrik.
Thank you.
So the Dell monitor he references 24 inches, 1080p. I believe it's IPS. It does all the stuff that the nice Dell monitors do. You know, it rotates, swivels back and forth, has DisplayPort, all that stuff. So, Dave, what do you think about getting a 1440? This, and it's 1080p. What do you think about getting a 1440p monitor and then plugging a 1080p PS4 up to it? Is he going to enjoy that or not?
Yes, I have done that, and as long as you're not sitting super close to it, I think it looks great, just because the monitor is going to be pretty good sized. And 1440p scales pretty well. I mean, I did Rocket League, and if you got close to the screen, boy, was there aliasing everywhere. But I don't think it's anything that you're going to freak out over. I think it works perfectly fine.
So if Dave's okay with it, most everybody else probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah, just scoot about 10 feet back, squint really hard, and go to your happy place, and you'll be good.
Now, does he need speakers? It doesn't say that he needs it to have speakers, which is good. I'm going to suggest an alternative monitor, since he has a budget of $300 to $350. That Dell is a good monitor. Let's start there. That's a good monitor. You could just buy that monitor and be totally happy. But Dave, I'm sending you a link to a monitor that's very similar to the one Debbie has, except it's a little bit nicer. It's an Asus PB258Q, a 25-inch 1440p IPS monitor. It has HDMI, MHL, HDMI, DVI, DisplayPort, all that stuff. Super thin bezels, very pretty, and is 1440p at 25 inches, which is an excellent pixel density. What do you think about that?
I like the 27 inches just for the size.
I'm going to send him a link to one of those too. He's going to get a link to one of those. Don't worry.
It does make a difference, but you brought up pixel density. Now that I think about it, 25 I bet does look pretty good.
It does. So, I mean, that's what Debbie's using, and it looks excellent.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, monitors you're closer to anyway. The 23-inch Dell I have the podcast stuff up on right now looks fantastic. Yeah, 25. All right. Sounds pretty good.
And then the other one is the old Asus PB277Q. An old standby, although I don't know if it got an update or am I looking at an updated model of some kind, but they say it's a 75 hertz monitor now. So maybe this is an updated model, but that would also work. Has all that stuff, is IPS, blah, blah, blah. Let me make sure this is IPS, because I wonder if this might be a slightly updated model. Some of this stuff doesn't look familiar. I'm going to Google this real quick.
Okay.
And make sure I'm recommending the right thing, because it was one of their most popular monitors. That is actually a TN panel. Ew. Okay.
Dislike.
Sorry about that. I'm going to remove that from the list. It's okay. You won't have a link to it. You'd have to go search for it yourself, because I'm not going to send it to you. Oh, right next to it. My bad. The Dell PB278Q is the correct monitor. Okay, that's the one that's IPS 1440p. It's a PLS/IPS screen. Does all the cool stuff. Very nice. It currently sells for $390. It does go on sale down into the low 300s. Right now, you can get one from Amazon Warehouse for $311. So, potentially a good option. But that Dell that you send us, that's a good monitor. If you needed to get that monitor or wanted to get that monitor, that'd be totally fine. 1440p is great. Dave says you won't see much of a difference if you plug your PS4 into it. Keep in mind that's going to be harder to drive for your laptop to do a little gaming, but it shouldn't make a significant difference. It won't make any difference for just working on your desktop, stuff like that. You'll be totally fine. All right, up next is Dylan. Dylan says, he sent an email and then sent one a couple days later. He said, so my last email, I asked you guys to help me build an $800 PC. I actually found out I can possibly up that budget to $1,000 or $1,200 if necessary. If possible, I'd like to fit a good monitor into this budget, but if it's not enough, I can always put more money into the build for those items. I want to run games like The Witcher 3 at 1080p high settings and 60 FPS if possible, and have room for future games. I'd also like to have an SSD to get loading screen times down. This will be my first PC build, so I have a small amount of knowledge on things like how much RAM I need or what graphics card would be best for me. What would you guys suggest as a good monitor? If you have any questions or would personally like to make suggestions, let me know. I really appreciate the help, guys. Look forward to what you'll be able to come up with. Dave, you ready for a link?
I am ready. He said Witcher 3, so I'm on board. Let's do this.
1080p, 60 FPS. He needs us for The Witcher. Geralt needs us.
Geralt
Dylan
and his
needs us.
flowing locks need our help.
So $1,000 to $1,200. Dave, what is in the list?
Oh, look at this. 1,100. Very nice. We have an i5 6600K at 3.5 gigahertz. Hyper 212. Moving on.
Okay, name a better one. That's all I'm saying.
Moving on.
$30.
Gigabyte GA B150M-D3H. Wow.
So maybe skim some of these names.
Yeah, it's a motherboard. It works. It's $80. G-Skill 8 gigs of DDR4 2400 memory. Now that's clocked a bit lower, right, than we've seen before.
DDR 2400. It's not the worst. It's not the best. He could update it to 2800 or 3000 if he wants. I mean, that's we'll talk about that in a minute. Actually, let me see. I'll go ahead and edit the list and see if I can get a little bit of a faster one in there. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say I mean, if it's not super slow, that's fine because that's a great price. $30 for 8 gigs, not bad. We've got your favorite, apparently crucial 240 gig solid state drive for the boot drive. Good old Western Digital Caviar Blue 1 terabyte for all your games and storage. GTX 970, that's an interesting choice.
We'll talk about that in a
Okay.
minute.
Well, I'm already calling you out now, though.
Okay.
Corsair 200R ATX mid-tower case. What, no fractal, Jeremiah?
No. Come on, man. The 200R, that was my last case. It used to be $50 though. It's up to 66 now though, so I'm not
Might as well
sure
be a
how I feel
fractal.
about them. for only double.
Thermaltake 500 watt 80 plus gold power supply. Yeah, Thermaltake. Your unexciting DVD drive. You got Windows 10 Home OEM for $95. It's actually on sale somewhere. Interesting. And an Acer. What is this? R240H.
It's a 24-inch 1080p IPS with all the inputs, real pretty stand.
Okay, yeah. I was just looking. That's the bezel looks fantastic. That stand looks like the factory forgot a piece.
It's got very good reviews though, and
Okay.
it's $125.
Tell you what, though,
If you want a
with-
stand that like rotates or something, you can spend more. But for a cheap one, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think the monitor looks great. I think the stand's pretty ugly, but that's just my personal opinion. Along with, I'm pretty sure that PC hardware manufacturers ran out of like numbers for their model numbers like a decade ago, and now they're just throwing things against the wall.
Yeah, it's not that hard to put good names and stuff, guys. But anyway, so I've edited the list to have 8 gigs of Kingston Fury DDR4 to 2666. So anyway,
Okay.
that's not important. Let's talk about the video card. So I put a 970 in there because one, it's a good card that would pretty much do what he wants. But the 480 and the 1060 and whatever else are in and out of stock constantly. So I was like, I'll just throw a 970 in there as a placeholder. So let's just be really clear. 970s are good cards. So Dylan, if you got a 970, that would not be the worst thing in the world, especially because on sale, you can probably pick one up for the low 200s. I've seen numerous ones in the low 200s.
Right.
But I would recommend an 8 gigabyte RX 480 or a 6 gigabyte GTX 1060 instead. They both fit into your budget. You just have to find one in stock. I will let you pick it and stick it in your case, and you'll be fine. Other notes, I did include that 240 gig SSD for boot stuff and then a 1 terabyte hard drive. That shall be fine. Don't install that many games on your SSD. It doesn't make that big of a difference for mini games. Only games where you've noticed a really, really long boot time, should you bother doing that.
Okay, slight aside here, because we're talking about The Witcher 3. I've been playing my copy on PC on an SSD since launch because Geralt gets first place on the SSD, of course, as you might expect. Joel showed me something on his PS4 copy of Witcher, and I realized that I haven't actually noticed the load screens on my copy in like a year, because I noticed there was a load screen on his PS4, I noticed a little animation, and it was at least 40 seconds of loading. It blew my mind that I literally had not thought about the load screen, because when I load it, I'm like pulling my chair up, getting comfortable, getting the immersion ready, and by the time I look at my screen, I'm in game and it's fading in. It really blew my mind, the difference. And James has said too, he has an SSD in his PS4, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, even that made a huge difference, even on the console.
And then he asked how much RAM do you need? 8 gigs is the good minimum these days. You won't need 16 for a long time. If you wanted to spend more and get 16 now, you can, but you don't have to. You can add another 8 later. Memory usually gets cheaper, unless there's a flood in a factory, which has happened before and driven the prices up. But, yep, this will do Witcher 3 at 1080p high settings at 60 FPS. Depending on which video card you get, maybe there's always a setting or two you got to tweak on any game. So when you say high 60 FPS, just be flexible. That's in most every game, but there's always small things that need adjustment. So as long as you're willing to do that, yes, you can have that experience with this build quite easily. If you have any questions, let us know. We'll help you optimize a little bit. If you don't need that copy of Windows, you already have it or something, let us know. We'll help you out. But it sounds like this is kind of your first build and you may not already have that.
Right.
So our last question of the evening comes from Jonathan. He says, "Hey guys, I'm a new listener to the podcast, coming from the now common potato masher route, and I especially enjoy your tech episodes, especially because I'm back into building and tinkering with PCs for the first time since the early 2000s.
Oh man.
It's my stepson's birthday next week, and he's told me he wants to buy the parts for a new PC with his birthday money so I can help him build his first rig. That's great, but the task of picking the parts falls to me too, and I'm feeling the pressure. Budget-wise, he's going to wait until he knows how much birthday money he has before he pulls the trigger, but I'm going to take a guess it will be an absolute maximum of 200 GBP. So he says it's about 200 USD. The masher has given me great hope that old or at least very budget processors can get the job done, so I was looking roughly in the direction of something like an FX 4300. The problem is I have no real confidence we get much future upgrading out of that sort of bundle, as my goal is to start small and give him room for a very decent graphics card in the near future. So to summarize, I think if I can get a relatively future-proof, future-safe motherboard, CPU, RAM, and video solution, everything else I have covered, for games no more demanding than Overwatch at decent settings around the $200 mark, then I think we'll be on to a winner. Do you guys have any thoughts or words of wisdom? Thanks for your time. Carry on the great work. Jonathan in the UK. So I have not built a list for this yet. We're going to build this here. $200 about, Dave, to get a motherboard, CPU, RAM, and a video card.
All right. I figure $10 for the ski mask. And then a good airsoft gun you can paint black for the robbery. This is not advice. Disclaimer.
So I guess the first thing I'd ask is, how comfortable are you with used parts? Because if you are, this does get easier. You could even get like an old Core 2 quad or something, or an early i5 like the Potato Masher has. I mean, there are options there. But let's not sugarcoat it. This is going to be rough.
Yeah, let me start with this question. If used parts are not an option, is this feasible?
Motherboard, CPU, RAM, and a video card. I have put an X4 845 quad core, which is faster than an FX 4300 in games. You can't really overclock the X4 845, but it's decent. A BioStar motherboard and 8 gigs of Corsair memory. I'm currently sitting at 106 pounds. So let's see what video card we can get for around 100 pounds, and that will kind of tell us. I'm going to start at 74 pounds and go up to 130 pounds. So, okay. Dave, I think we can do this.
Oh, man.
we can get a 750 Ti for £90.
All right.
That's Overwatch at decent settings. I mean, the thing is, there is no other card that's going to be competitive until you get to, it's going to be better than that really until you get to the 950, which is going to start around £120. So unless you can get it on sale, if you can get it on sale, get the 950. It's a significantly better card. Mm-hmm. If you just want to play Overwatch on decent settings, a 750 Ti will do it. And he said he wants to give him a platform where he can upgrade to a better card in the future. I mean, yeah, that would work. So to talk about the CPU question, is this the best CPU in the world? No. Might it hold him back in some future games? Yes. Overwatch, it actually uses your CPU quite a bit. It's not going to hold you back, but you can get better performance with a good CPU in Overwatch. But this rig will perform a little bit slower than the Potato Masher because of the 750 Ti. And if you can get a GTX 950 on sale, then it will be about the same as the Potato Masher. And if you're comfortable buying used, you could always look for a GTX 770, a GTX 680, an R9 79, or not R9, a Radeon, was it R9? 7950? No, HD, an HD 7950.
Okay, yeah.
An HD 7950. Whatever you can find over in England, I don't really know. But one of those cards, like if you want a big list of video cards, I can help you out. If you're planning on doing a good video card upgrade in the future, get a 750 Ti. Don't worry about it. He'll be able to play Overwatch at okay settings. I mean, if you don't care about the video card that much now, and he could run garbage as long as it runs the game until he gets a nice card,
right?
Let us know, and we can make you a build that spends like £150 and get you a bit of a faster processor. But the X4 845 is actually a really good quad core. So Dave, you know the G3258, right?
Lay it out for me.
That's the darling Intel dual-core Pentium processor
right
that you can overclock.
Yep.
Everybody likes it. It's the 60, whatever. You shouldn't buy it. This is the monthly reminder. Don't buy it. It only has two cores. It's not hyper-threaded. It will give you problems in modern games.
It is the thorn in Jeremiah's side.
But why it's nice is it's cheap. That's why people like it. Totally understandable. The X4 845 goes for about $60. And it performs pretty similarly in real-world gaming stuff. You slap a 1080 on it, the G3258 will come out a little bit ahead. But the X4 845 is actually pretty similar. Brand new is $60, and I think it's only a 60-watt part. Either 60 or 80 or something. So it's very power efficient too. It is an awesome, pretty new processor that I think is going to be seen in a lot more builds coming up when people are doing budget stuff. And the nice thing about the FM2 Plus socket is you can get motherboards for like £35 that are halfway decent. So,
I mean, that's pretty sweet.
It is pretty sweet. So if you want to spend a little bit more on everything else except for the graphics card or whatever, let us know. We'll help you out. But he could definitely do it. It'll be a little bit tight, but it sounds like his expectations are reasonably low. And this probably slightly exceeds what you're expecting. I would put this a little bit slower than the Potato Masher. For Overwatch, it'll probably kill it because Overwatch runs really, really well. Anything else to add, Dave?
Just that is surprisingly solid.
Yeah, I mean, it's... Yeah... It's for the money, yes.
I mean,
you've never been able to get more money or more performance for less money before than you can right now.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah. $200 for a gaming computer, even a super entry level used parts one, like $200 is like, you got monthly bills that are that much. Like that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and so I'm just thinking if it was me. So let's throw some ideas out here, Jonathan. If you were willing to like go the used route, you might be able to get a 2500K plus motherboard plus RAM combo for like £130 or something.
Nice.
And like I would do that in a heartbeat and then just deal with whatever graphics cards you can find. Because you could also probably find a used thing that would be pretty stinking competitive. So if you want to go used, get in touch with us. We'll send you some recommendations. It kind of depends on your used market. I don't think the UK used market is nearly as good as the American used market though. So we'll assume you're not doing that. But if you want to, get in touch. But Dave, got anything else you want to talk about this evening?
I think that's it.
All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. You can write into casualshenanigans@gmail.com to be part of the show. To everybody who we sent parts lists and things to, write back into us if you want clarification, you want to make adjustments, anything else, we'll help you out. We'll talk to everybody else in the next episode. Thank you guys for listening, and stay casual.
See you guys.